Hey, good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us on yet another episode of the podcast. Today, I have a phenomenal guest with us. Today on the podcast is Mr. Olagoke Balogun, and he's going to be sharing with us on the subject matter of pioneering the future of food, building sustainable and scalable healthy food business in Nigeria. And so I'm just going to read out his profile so we get to know him a bit better before we start out the conversation. Mr. Olagoke Balogun is a visionary leader, resilient entrepreneur, and the co-founder and CEO of Fresh Neighbourhood Market Ltd, Nigeria's pioneering indigenous healthy food restaurant chain. Since launching So Fresh in 2010, Mr. Olagoke has played a transformational role in shaping Nigerians' food culture, inspiring people to prioritize healthier eating and driving the growth of healthy food industry across the country. As a trailblazer, Mr. Olagoke is widely credited with pioneering the healthy food restaurant category in Nigeria, leading the change to make nutritious, fresh, and accessible meals to mainstream lifestyle choices. His work has not only elevated the conversation around wellness and nutrition, but also has spurred the rise of healthier versions of traditional Nigerian meals. This through So Fresh, Mr. Olagoke has created hundreds of jobs, mentored aspiring entrepreneurs, and inspired a new generation of food innovators. With proven track record in strategic leadership, business growth, and team development, Mr. Olagoke is passionate about building sustainable organizations founded on sound business principles that can thrive for generations. His approach combines strategic thinking, continuous learning, and creative execution to drive long-term success beyond his business. He also mentors and he also mentors and is deeply committed to community impact as well as shaping the future of food in Africa. Once again, Mr. Olagoke, welcome to the AIAN Podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure being here.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, so we'll just sort of dive into the conversation today. My very first question to you is, you pioneered the healthy food restaurant category in Nigeria way back in 2010, which is like 15 years ago. So what sort of inspired you to start out this journey, and what problems were you trying to solve at that time?
Right. Thank you once again for having me. Uh, so fresh 2010. Like you rightly said, it was not the most obvious, business idea. Back then, selling fruits, vegetables was
Yeah.
not um, what everybody looked forward to. So, what did I see? What inspired me? For me, one, it was personal story, personal experience.
Oh,
I
wow.
wanted to how we shop for fruits and vegetables, natural
Mhm.
farm produce in Nigeria, because I
Yeah.
thought that system was outdated. It was stressful. Um, Remember, this was 2010. We didn't even have stores like the Shoprite and the big grocers sell fruits and
True.
vegetables in their store. So every time you are
Yeah.
going to shop, you have to go to the open market. Sometimes it's dirty, it's sunny, it's raining. You have to walk long
Mhm.
distances, and that
Yeah.
was my experience. Growing up with my mom, and I didn't. I wanted to change that. I wanted to have something different, and
Mm.
change that space. And so that was one of the inspiration for going into that business. Very quickly, however, we discovered that there was a bigger market, which
Mm.
was providing fresh, convenient, healthy food accessible to our
Mhm.
audience.
Yeah.
And we thought that if we zeroed in on that, we could create more impact, because one, we would be changing the eating lifestyle, the eating lifestyle of Nigerians. We'll be introducing more healthier options to the consumers. And so for
Yeah.
us, it was about impact. We found that major gap in the market. There was nobody doing anything like that, and we decided
Mm,
to zero in and change, that perception of, healthy food is boring. Healthy food cannot be great and delicious, and healthy food, must be expensive. And so, together
mm.
with all those, those were, the things that had me. So, I would say summary, it was about, creating an impact and, plugging that gap, in the market.
Wow. So it was more of a story of seeing the need and then taking the lead. And like you said, you wanted to solve like a personal problem, but you also saw the fact that this was also something that other people could benefit from, and you decided to then scale. And like I said, before we came in on the studio, I said it was just an unconventional idea way back into 2010, which is like 15 years ago. To like sort of for you to take that risk to do that, just go that unconventional route. Uh, my question to you is, looking back, what are some of like the biggest challenges you faced when you were launching and scaling So Fresh, and how did you sort of overcome those challenges at that time?
So as you can imagine, it was a novel idea. It was unique. There was nothing like it. So the first biggest challenge was finding that market itself,
Mm,
finding that first set of people that believed in the idea, that it
yeah,
resonated with, that connected. So what you can call early adopters. And so that was
yeah.
biggest. We actually struggled for about 3 years because we were doing something that was completely new to the market, and so finding, that right customer base, attracting the right people, even early those days, convincing Nigerians that salad was food was the biggest challenge, because it wasn't
Mm,
what people
we're
now
used
people
to.
come and say, I want to have lunch, and they order a
Right.
salad and a smoothie from So Fresh. I
Yeah.
will also think that 98%, I mean, I just picked that people from my head. Nobody would think like that back in 2010, that I want to have
Not
lunch and
at
salad.
all.
So that was the first biggest challenge, creating that market and finding, the people that, the idea, resonated with. And then
Yeah.
on top of that, we had to battle with, very poor infrastructure, especially around cold
Mm,
chain. Because it was fresh produce, everything had
yeah.
to be fresh, everything had to be
Yeah.
preserved. And so, we were battling a lot with, things like power, distribution, logistic issues around how to distribute, food and fresh produce, and make sure that it's the same from when it leaves our store to when it gets to the customer. Um,
Wow.
I think that, as a young entrepreneur, I'm trying to go back and then, as a young entrepreneur, a big challenge was also, I would say, disjointed government policies and regulation. There was just a lot that you didn't know, you couldn't find, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, someone wakes up and say, you are supposed to be doing this, and you are supposed to be paying this in terms of levies or fees or regulation, and then you
Mhm.
clear that. Even when you try to ask questions to say, okay, what law backs this, what regulation backs this, you are not. It's not always the most transparent, and so you had that
Mm,
constantly engaging, different authorities, and my plea always is that I wish that there was even more transparency around, regulation and policies governing a particular industry. Like if you're going to
mm,
go into the financial industry, maybe because it's so crucial to the economy. There's a number. It's quite defined, but for some other industries
yes.
like that, you just don't know what's coming next. So that was a big
Mm,
challenge. Um, I also say as a small business, it was finding and retaining, skilled talent. What has happened is, so we are very big on people. We have a very good HR process, hiring, recruitment, training, and you, as an SME or as a growing business, you're always at the risk of, first of all, difficult to attract talent. When you attract, you're always at, danger of always losing them to, bigger players. So people was one of the biggest challenge. Maybe the last thing I would touch on would be access to finance. That was also quite challenging, especially in the early days, because one nobody really a lot of people didn't even believe in the business idea. So you're going to sell juices, smoothies, and you're going to make a business out of it. You're not selling rice, you're not selling amala, you're not selling turkey and all of that. And so that was quite challenging to overcome that order of people now believing that, oh, there is a business here. So in starting, those were some of the challenges, that we had to face
Mm.
as we grew the business.
Wow, that's that's quite profound. So it was more a case of a learning journey for you as well. So as we're going, just as we came across those challenges, you tried your best to sort of navigate it. Um, my
Absolutely,
next question. Okay.
absolutely. That's business anyway. The truth is that the more challenges, the more problem you fix, the likelier you will stay in business and create a big, outsized impact. So the bigger the challenge or the bigger the problem you're solving, the bigger the impact you can have on in the business landscape and consequently on the economy as a whole.
Okay. So my next question now is just like a sub question, a follow up question to the previous question. And you guys have done 15 years now. Year one to at what year exactly did the traction became, something to say, okay, I think people are adopting or are familiarizing themselves with our product. From what year to what year did the traction really pick up? Like you say, okay, I think we got something going here.
Okay, so I would say the first time the traction really picked up significantly was in 2013, and that coincided with when we moved to. That was 3 years after we started. When we moved to Ikoyi and also changed the
Mm,
business. So we started as so fresh. 2013, the business had existed for 3 years, and we had to ask ourselves, what do we need to do to move to the next level? And we took a number of decisions. We changed location, we changed the name, we revised our product line, and redefined our USP. Um,
mm,
and when we did all of that, business picked up. It was practically in less than 2 months, we quadrupled our sales. So that was a very significant move. But I'll say
mm,
the point where I now like totally believe that okay, we have created something. So we had one location from 2010 to 2013. We closed it. So we opened the second one in Ikoyi in 2013. Then we closed the first one. So we now had one again. Then we opened the
mm,
second 2015 of Webi. And when we
mm,
opened that one in 2015, sales picked up from day one. It was like we've always been there. There was no break period.
mm.
We had two locations. We were even struggling to meet demands in the two
Yes,
locations in less than 6 months. And then that was when I told myself, now this is real. We've now replicated this
yes,
and
yes. Yes.
and it was actually a year after I left paid employment. So I'll say
Oh, wow.
2016 really that period when I thought, yeah, we've hit something.
Oh, wow. That's really good. Really, really good. So you would, if because I want to believe that people are listening also for the subtle clues in terms of just managing business generally, like not just like food business. So there's also the thing about ideal location and also sort of, okay, reevaluating your processes and then saying, okay, what do we need to do differently? Do we need to make some changes, adjustments, and things like that? So thank you so much for sharing that. And so, how important would you say it is to localize like healthy food solutions in Africa? And how did you balance like global health eating trends with the Nigerian taste and tradition? Because we know that for us in Nigeria or as Nigerians, at that time, we're typically used to like, let's say, you order food, it's usually like rice or samo or something. So for you, how would you say like it's important to also sort of localize products to meet the demands of the market?
I mean, so that's absolutely a very important point for every business, food, tech, fashion. Your business at the end of the day must be relevant to the community where you are in. So let's take
Mm,
fashion for example. You will not find a lot of thick, heavy jackets around here in Nigeria because the weather is always hot. So you're not
yes.
going to say you are a brand that sells thick products.
Mm-hmm.
If let's say you have a product, let's say you have a business, you start a business, let me say in a very cold region, and it goes viral and everybody all over the world loves it. What would likely happen is that when you're going to more temperature hotter regions, you're going to create something fit for that
Mm,
for that region. So it's the same thing, for food, especially in our experience. When we
yep.
started, people didn't even consider salad as food, like I said, or whatever we're doing, juices, smoothies. Nobody, went out of their house to order or buy, smoothies and all of that. So we have to think about one, how do we
Yep.
create a proper messaging so that people understand and people get the importance and the need that we're trying to solve. So the first thing is around the
Mhm.
message. Sometimes you might have a good and a clear product, but if you don't message it properly, what I like to
Yeah.
say is that nobody wakes up in their house waiting for you to start your business or to buy from
Yeah.
you that day. It's really about how you get in front of them and position it correctly. So messaging becomes very, very important, which was key for us in the early days. Social media, we leverage social media a lot. I mean, it was even not this noisy. We were one of the very first, brands talking about healthy living, healthy eating, fitness, and that drew customer to us. That made them pay attention. The second part of
Mm,
it was localizing our menu to what fit the Nigerian palate. So,
yeah.
for example, I'll take an example of is salad and wrap. So I'll just quickly give practical examples. So when we started doing salads, we actually started doing tuna salads. We copied the menu off the internet and all of that. Yes, it was doable, but it wasn't really resonating. This was about 2014. Some other businesses had started coming into that space, and everybody was doing things like Caesar salad, Mediterranean salad, all of that. Yeah, people were buying it. Maybe people that had that taste for foreign, or they had traveled, or they are returnees and all of that. But
Yeah.
then one day we said, what would Nigerians typically like? What would Nigerians typically eat, especially based on what we started from Lagos.
Yeah.
So we said Nigerians like spicy food. What
Mm,
stops them from eating, spice in their salad? So we created the sweet and spicy chicken salad in 2015. That singular menu turned out to be a big turning point for salad sales for us, and I believe generally because people immediately resonated. Oh, so I can still eat my salad and still feel that kick, and
mm,
that was a big example of localization, and
yeah.
that brought in and drew customers. Till today, about 10 years later, that is still a star product because people just resonate with it. It was similar for rap. So when we started doing raps, we were doing raps. When we started with cold rap, and people will come, so I don't want me to eat cold food. I know be Oyinbo. I'm not I'm not a foreigner. I'm not eating cold food, hot food, right?
Yeah.
And then it was not really, it didn't have a lot of key. And so we also we changed the menu. We revamped the menu. Add some spices to it, and then the sales of wrap took off. So every time for a business, localizing your solutions, localizing your product, looking at the specific context. I also like to make a point that Nigeria, for example, is a big country. So when we move from Lagos to Abuja, of course, in Lagos we have star products. When we moved to Abuja, that was in 2018, I think. We found out that some of the, so for example, the beef salad was doing way better in the north than the chicken salad. So you also have
Mm,
to look at and some other products, like so you have to really look at the context of the environment. Now in
yeah.
Port Harcourt, some of the star products in Port Harcourt is not the star product we have across. And you should not want to go and force your star products on your locality. So you have to be
Yeah.
sometimes context specific so that your product is relevant and appeals to what the market wants. And what usually
Mm,
happens is that once that you're relevant to them and they accept that product, you can actually introduce other products to them. So sometimes it's a matter of being patient. A typical example would be when the noodle industry or the company came into Nigeria. I remember listening to their CEO once and said when they started pushing their products into the market, there was a lot of reluctance. People were like, I don't want to eat worms because in Nigeria, noodles look like worms. But they stayed with the market, they were patient with it, and then over time, they won over the customer. So localization is very, very important.
wow, that's really good. It's just interesting to hear that, also context as well. Just like you mentioned Abuja. And I want to think that Abuja, maybe they resonated more with beef because they're used to like cows and things like that. I would want to think that was probably why that was. I would want to think that, but that's really, really, really great. So my next question at this time is, many people have like great ideas. However, they sort of struggle to scale these ideas. So, you being a strategist, what would you say are like the key principles or strategies that has helped you sort of transition from just a single location to like building a full-fledged out thriving food chain?
Okay, so scaling a business, what you want to do is you want to be able to repeat the same results across your multiple touch points, whether
Yeah.
it's online, whether you're doing multiple deliveries to different cities, whether people are accessing your products on your website, whether they are accessing through physical locations. The long and short of it, when you scale a business and it goes big, is that you want the experience to be consistent and you want to
Mm,
achieve over and over again. So how do you
yeah.
do that? The first thing is systemization, right?
Mm,
Systemization. You want to systemize all your operations. First of all, starting with your products. So we're talking. I'm in the food industry, and I have opportunity to talk to food businesses a lot. And one of the things that surprised me is that people don't even so you don't have a recipe for your products, right?
mm,
That's a recipe for struggling and for failure. So first of all, you want to systemize your product. How do I make this product? That's first. How do I deliver the product? There must be standardization across all of that. Then within the internal operations, how do things work within the business? So for a physical brick and mortar store, something as simple as how do we clean our stores every day, and what does clean look like? Because when you bring in people from everywhere, clean looks different to everybody. So there must be a
yeah.
standard around how does clean look like. So I say the first thing is systemization. The second thing is that you want to be absolutely sure what the value proposition is to your customers.
Mm,
Then that is cascaded throughout the entire organization, whether whatever the touch point is.
yeah.
Um, Scaling again, I would say that it's important to focus on the numbers.
Mm,
Yeah, many businesses sometimes have this challenge. If you are not great with your numbers up to a granular level, it becomes difficult to scale, or you will scale in the wrong direction. So you want to really be abreast of your numbers. Numbers first in terms of finances, you know. So you need to know, your revenues, your cost of sales, your expenses, your financing costs in terms of interest and all of that. You want to know your profit and loss every month. You want to know, your cash flow, on a monthly basis as well. And when you have all these figures at the tip of your hands, you can
Yeah.
start to look at them, start to see the patterns month on month, quarter on quarter, year on year, and start to know, um, what to change, what to improve, what levels to do, and all of that. Now, numbers again in terms of data, just collecting a lot of data about your business. So, how many sales do you make within 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.? What days of the week do you sell more? What are your customer buying? What's it called? Buying behavior. When they buy one, do they usually buy another with it? That already tells you that okay, this product may be complementary. Do you want to create a combo? Do you want to do something around it? So all those data are just focused on sales data. There are a whole lot of other data. Even your HR should have data. What kind of people are you attracting? How long do they stay in the business? What is their why do they leave the business? So when you look at the same thing, you can look at your supply chain. So data helps you to really know exactly what's going on in the business. So you must always look at it from the point of if you go to an hospital, the first thing the doctor, they do is to take your vitals and then they do a test. That is how they will know what's wrong, what they need to treat, what they need to do, and all of that. So as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, you must always see your business as a sick patient. Because let me tell you, it only takes business the if you don't actively manage and push your business, the most obvious route is decline. So you must always look
Mm,
at it like this business wants to fall sick. And then every
mm,
day, every week, every month, they're looking at the vitals and trying to manage it and steer it in the right way. Because when you start to scale, it gets more complex. And then the
mm,
numbers is a way for you to simplify and know where to focus on. I'll also say operational discipline, which goes
mm,
back to systemization. When you have systemized your operations, you want to be disciplined enough to make sure that people are following it. And this now goes to organizational structure. So how is work done? How is work organized? Who supervises what? Do you have a proper auditing system to be sure that this particular process is standardized, people are following it? How do you have your checks and balances? So that goes to oversight and supervisory oversight. So yes, operational discipline, operational excellence. Maybe lastly, I'll talk about leadership. So as a business leader, you need to realize that the cap of your business becomes dependent on you, and so you have to intentionally grow your capacity. If you don't grow your capacity to manage people, to understand business better, you would limit how far your business can grow. Even bringing in experts and managing them correctly is a skill. Just the fact
mm,
that in experts or knowledgeable people does not necessarily mean that things will progress. It may progress, but it will progress on the wrong foundation and you can hit a snag along the way. So you as a leader, you need to increase your capacity to manage, to understand the world of business, so that you can help grow and drive your business, as you scale.
fantastic. There's something very vital you mentioned, and I just mentioned the word. You said understand your business vitals. Well, so for every business person, listening to us right now, what exactly are those business vitals that they have to look out for to say okay, and then pay attention to? What would those things be?
So let me just say something. For every business, at the minimum, there should be 5 to 10 numbers that you look at when you wake up every Monday morning. Once there
Mm,
should be 5 to 10 numbers that
okay.
you look at every week, and that is how you know, okay, how did we do last week versus this week? There should be
Mm,
at 5 to 10 numbers that you look at every week, and that
okay.
shows you progress, trajectory, and all of that at the minimum.
Mm, wow. That's good. Really, really good. Really, really good. So, what does it really takes to build like a modern, scalable data? Okay, let's put it this way. You know, you talked about data and observing data, the importance of like data. For let's say like a small business that's just starting up, they don't have so much infrastructures to do that. What would you say is like at the minimal level the things they should that would serve as data for them to then make informed decisions in terms of just growing the business?
So first of all, sales. You have to know your sales every single day. Um, I can understand how businesses don't record their daily sales. So some
Mm,
consulting and I say, what did you sell last month? And they are trying to figure it out. You must know your sales every day. That's the starting point. You must
mm,
know how much you spend, how much you spend in the business. So that will cover your expenses and your purchases. So expenses in terms of like OPEX, I mean operating expenses,
yeah,
your marketing costs, your logistic costs, your delivery, power, diesel, staff, and then your purchases, around your raw materials, your um, to purchase goods. If you purchase finished goods, like if you're a clothing store that you just sell finished products, how much is your cost of
production.
of product and all of that? Yeah. So those three numbers you must really know them, and you must know how much you expend on that. Um, then maybe you also want to zero in on your customer. So how many? Because it's not just enough to say I'm selling. Let's say you are selling 500,000, you are happy with it. How many customers is delivering that to you?
Yeah,
Customers, you have one customers, you have 50 customers. Is there any risk around it? So you want to track your customer database. Because let me, for example, if your sales is increasing and your customer is not increasing, you're in danger. Again,
mm,
if you're a retail business, you're in danger because it just needs you to lose one or two of those big spending customers and your sales goes down. So customer numbers in terms of daily numbers is also
yeah,
something important that I want to capture. So I'll say at the minimum basic level, you should be able to look at those numbers. And of course, on a monthly basis, you really want to know how much profit and loss you're making and how much cash you have in the business.
mm. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing this. So you have created numerous jobs for people across your organization over the last decade and a half, and inspired a new wave of like food entrepreneurs. So what would be that one advice you can give to those looking to enter into this healthy food space and make real impact?
So I would say that for every business, including healthy food space, it's important to start with a clear purpose and a
Mm,
clear vision for your business. Why are you doing what you're doing? What change, what impact do you want to make? So I'll always say that's the first starting point, starting with a clear purpose, or you can call it a mission for your business. The second thing is have a clear strategy of
mm,
do. So now you have a clear purpose. What's the strategy in terms of who do you want to serve? Like who are your
yeah.
customers? What are their problems? And what is your solution? You must always start from the problem. It's
Mm,
always kind of, it looks sexy to start from the idea. I have this big, bold idea. What problem is it solving? When you start from the problem phase, you're better able to create better solutions. So
yeah.
understanding your customers, understanding the problem, what's the product you're serving to them, and how are you going to get it to the market. So more like the
Mm,
what and the how of how you are going to meet um, the customer and the customer needs. Then
mm,
we've talked about building system and structure
yeah.
into your business. Um, it is not until you're big, even at that small stage, that is even the time to start to systemize your operations.
Yeah.
It's a continuous journey. So you want to systemize your operations, and lastly, I would say invest in people, because people are your biggest asset. So as your business grow and you begin to bring in people, you must have a very strong people operations, what we call HR. Because I also find that that's a point where many small businesses struggle when they bring in people, how they bring in the people first of all, hiring to how they onboard them, how they manage their performance, then the kind of culture that is set in the business. There's a lot of struggle around that, and then it becomes, oh my, people are not loyal, people are not doing what I asked them to do. If when I was doing this myself, I was doing it better. That is why you need to earlier on,
Mm.
create processes and system for your business, and then invest in the people in terms of, making you are hiring the right people for your business. You're
Mm.
training them continuously. I'm
Yes.
repeating a lot these days. Training is not a one-time
Thing.
event in your business. You don't train once and say I train them. Training is continuous. And so
Yes.
that's part of the way you invest. And training is both technical. I'll say it's both technical and behavioral in terms of culture. You must also train for your culture, the kind of culture, the kind
Mm.
of you see, what's important to the business. All of that has to come into the business. Um, I think the last point I would say, I missed it on when I was talking about strategy, is you must. I think I've talked about it earlier. Your messaging, which talks about your branding and your marketing.
Yeah.
No matter how great a product you create, if you don't get it in front of the right people and talk about it the way they understand it,
Yeah.
then you would have just created a great product, not a great business. So that would be
Mm.
my advice for anybody starting out. Just to summarize, start with a clear purpose, clear with a sales strategy, systemize, invest in your people operations, and then focus on the right marketing and branding mix.
That's amazing. And I think that this is also applicable to any kind of business. It's not just food business. So that's like a
Absolutely.
bonus point for any business owner here. So building a food business that outlives generations requires like strong leadership and systems, like you rightly mentioned, right? So what would you say are like some of the foundational leadership and operational practices that you have seen that has helped your organization thrive over the years?
Um, so I'll say first of all, leading with vision, leading with a vision. I don't know. I think it's my personal life is saying that that for you to be a leader, you must be going somewhere so that people are following. So you must lead with vision. There must
Mm.
be clear idea of where the business is going, what it wants to
Mm.
achieve, why it's doing what it's doing. That way, everybody can plug into it. And your vision, your mission must be bigger than you. If when your team perceives that this business is about satisfying your personal need, they are not going to commit it. Why should people wake up every day of their life just to put food on your table and send down your children to good schools and maybe travel once or twice for vacation? Why should I be committed to that? Which is what most businesses do for their employees. Because there's no larger vision, there's no larger mission. So why must they have ambitions of their own? So I say the first thing is to lead with vision, lead with mission, communicate it, let them
Yeah.
be part, let them understand it, and then let it be true. I'm not just talking of something you write down and paste on your this thing. It must something
Yeah.
that is live in your business and informs the decisions, the strategies, and the kind of things you do in the business. So leading with vision. Second, leading with values. There must be clear
Mm.
values that your business operates by in
Yeah.
terms of what is important to your business and what is the expected behaviors within the business. And
Yeah.
you are that you are the first custodian and model for that vision.
Mm.
When you embody that value, then you can enlist the rest of your team to do that with you. And in this, consistency becomes important. Be consistent with the
Yeah.
rules, the standards, the regulations within your organization. Subject yourself as a leader. Don't create, for example, a policy and you are exempt from it.
Mm,
You are sending a message to the rest of the team that when they also find a way, they can exempt themselves from, some of those
mm,
things. So
yeah.
I'll say those three are the first one: following the vision, build the values, consistency. And I'll also add this to say lead with empathy. Lead with
Mm,
empathy. At the
yeah.
end of the day, your team, they're humans. They have their own frailties. They have their own challenges. They have their own issues. I was able to contextualize things within that, framework of the business.
Yes.
So empathy. For example, at SoFresh, one of our core values is care, and we really
Mm,
mean it. We care for each other, we care for our customers, we care for all stakeholders, and we've defined what care means. Now, this is not an excuse for indiscipline or for people doing what they like, but we also realize that people are people, and there will be times where you want to show that you keep and even still maintain that discipline and standard. Um, then Something I learned over the years is, what is coined in this acronym that I like a lot, WIIFM. It's called WeFM. What is in it for me? Every
mm,
human being has that disposition. What's in it for me? So, as a leader, you need to be able to help your team realize what's in it for them by
yeah.
giving their self, their time, their expertise, their loyalty to your business. When they are able to clearly define that and they see it in action, then
Mm,
you are in a good place to provide, leadership. I also say that it's important to invest in training, especially as you bring on board more people. Don't
yeah.
invest in yourself and then the distance between you and the rest of your team is so wide. But you now complain that they're not doing the job, they don't have, they're not proactive, they're not making sound judgments. How are you supposed to make it? Because you have not made it your own KPI to develop. So developing leaders within your business becomes very
Yeah.
important to continue to sustain that leadership.
Wow. That's really good. Really, really good. I like the part of, you know, developing your people, because it's this thing of, oh, people think that, if I develop my people, I think it's a quote I heard somewhere like, oh, if I develop my people, they'll leave. And someone else said, oh, if you don't develop them, then they'll stay. And it's also doing a lot of uh detriments to your business. So invariably it's just wise to develop your people so that they are able to help you carry on the vision. Like you said, the key thing about the leadership is there's a vision, there's somewhere we are headed towards, and everybody needs to be aligned to that direction. Fantastic. So I would say this question is like very broad in its sense. So how can like agripreneurs, smallholder farmers, food producers collaborate with businesses like yours to sort of create stronger or more resilient food ecosystem? Because I believe like the food ecosystem in itself is large, and I think that with much more collaborations, a lot can be done within the system. So how can agripreneurs, smallholder farmers, and food producers collaborate with like businesses like yours to create stronger, more resilient food ecosystem?
Great. I think that's this is a really fantastic question. Even though you did not add it to, but add government because I think that's where it
Oh,
starts from.
oh yeah,
Mm,
we're going to come to that, like government and policymakers.
okay. But in answering this, I just want to bring something I think that it's only the government that can really do it, and it's around some key infrastructures that is important for the agri space to thrive, which is really first and foremost is logistics. So you're talking of transportation um, across the entire from the farm gate, from the farm to the farm gate,
Yeah.
to aggregators, wholesalers, to the market, and all of that.
Yeah.
I think that would go a long way in solving all the other challenges that we have within that space. So I think
Mm.
logistics is very important. Um, but then talking about how there can be, better synergy between the primary producers and the secondary and tertiary producers in the agri space.
Yeah.
I think the first challenge is, that reliability in supply in terms of quality, quantity, and then consistency. So the
Mm.
quality of the product, which really starts from, what they plant, the quality of the seedlings they plant, the farming practices uh, that they
Yeah.
employ while they're planting,
Listen,
and
yes.
then how they're able to deliver. Um, because you find out that between, so let me just paint a scenario. You look at the typical farm in, let's say, Kaduna, and they're
Okay.
delivering lettuce to Lagos. From the farm,
Mm-hmm.
you first of all, you don't have like big, highly mechanized vegetable farms. So you collect it from
So,
small farms. You go into all those interior, collect small farms, use small plow trucks to bring it to a central place, and then you load a bigger truck. You probably have lost 2 3 days doing all of
yeah.
that collection. Bigger trucks after 3 days departs and somehow manages to get to Lagos in another 3 4 days. So that produce has spent 7 weeks. It's not going to be the same quality at harvest. So that's one of the big challenges. That's why I mentioned transportation. So being able to solve for that quality, quantity, and consistency of the kind of
Mm.
produce. And then something that we also need to generally invest in is transparency and traceability business, which really means that the farmers need to standardize. They
Mm.
need to record and documentation very important, and so there needs to be a lot of farmer education. Again, sometimes some of these things need government support and subsidy to help arrive at standardizing the operations of this business, because like I said, there's still a lot of subsistence farming in the Nigerian market space. You don't have like highly mechanized structured businesses that are farms. You have some, um, but they're not near enough, and until we can drive that, then I think the last thing is to leverage technology and technology to help the farmers, and through even the distributors, down to the primary producers. So there's a lot
Mm.
of technology to be achieved, but then there's a lot of work also going on in that space. But I'll say that maybe one of the things missing is that government support and just help with that infrastructure part of it to help kind of initiatives within the food ecosystem.
That's really good. Then, speaking of technology, what would you say is the role of technology and innovation plays in building the food future of food business, particularly in Nigeria or let's say Africa, especially in scaling operations and even reaching more customers?
Yeah, so I think the importance of tech is is clear and obvious in these days to any industry. So first of all, tech will enable better supply chain. It will
Yeah,
enable better yeah, supply chain visibility. I talked about traceability, quality, and consistency.
yeah,
Tech can help achieve that. Then it's going to also drive efficiency in ordering, delivering, both from so I'm not talking about the final consumers. So
yeah,
a lot of tech has come in to help final producers reach customer faster, reach customer more efficiently. And
yeah.
also when I look at food safety and quality assurance, there's a lot that tech can help us fine tune that process. Um,
Mm.
and going back to the primary producers itself, I just think for whatever reason we're still almost like back in the 1950s, 1960s, the way we farm.
Why
And
would you say that?
yeah, so like I said, a large part of our farming is still with hoes and cutlasses. Yeah, so that's like living in 1960. There's even a lot of low tech that we can bring on board to, first of all, increase the production and increase
Mm,
the quality of the produce that we get from our farm. So technology is something that it's really important for us to adopt in the agri sector if we're going to
mm,
become sustainable, sustainable in terms of food as a nation. We have to produce more. We have to waste less. And
exactly.
then we have to produce food cheaper. Food is just too expensive. It does not make sense that the average Nigerian spends close to 60 to 100% of what they earn on food. That is actually a crisis at pandemic
Yeah.
level. And technology is something that can really help in solving that issue right from how people plant, how they harvest, how we transport.
Mm,
Um, so very important.
mm. From what you've said, uh, a lot of people think that the challenge isn't just in production; it's the post harvest losses sometimes, right? And like you said, I think there was an example you gave. Like if someone is bringing a product probably from the north down to the south or southwest, sometimes if those agricultural produce, most of them are very perishable. So the quality state that they were in at the time they had left the north before getting to you down south, it has deteriorated, right? So
Yes.
there's that to it. So I think that the conversation would be definitely around not just production, but also maximization of the product, not just like production in itself. Like, oh, okay. Because from what you said, there are lots of people producing vegetables, but they are not close within reach.
Mm.
A lot of people producing it, but they are not close within reach. So how can we empower people to do that? And also, like you mentioned earlier, there's the part where it's the kinds of seedlings that they are also using as well. The quality of that will also determine the quality of the product that will be produced later on, much more later. But thank you for sharing that point. That okay, some low cost technologies that can be used to drive much more productivity within that space. I want to ask this question because really you guys deal with a lot of fresh vegetables and things. Do you farm yourself?
No.
Oh
Um,
wow! So you're solely dependent on supply. Wow.
yeah, supply, you have farms, distributors within the network. No farming, and maybe not likely in the near future. No, I'm not called to be. I love farmers, but I'm not called to be a farmer.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay. So
Not yet.
okay, I like that. Not yet. It's like okay, this is my lane. I'm going to stay on this lane. It's just my lane. I'm going to do that. Beautiful, beautiful. So this question is uh, tilted towards like young people, which is um, if you could give one action call to like young food agripreneurs in Nigeria or across Africa, what would it be? How can they sort of start uh, businesses that would be scalable and the businesses that are also impactful?
I'm sorry. Can you take that question again?
Okay, fantastic. The
Got a bit
question
dis-
is okay, so the question is if you could give one action advice to like young food agripreneurs across Africa, what would it be as regards how they can start out a business and make it scalable and also impactful?
Okay. So I'll say to start out with a clear problem. I think I'll start with a clear problem and a clear solution. because in the agri space there's so much to be solved. There's so much to be solved. So you can really hone in on a viable business model. But the first
Mm-hmm.
thing is to have a clear idea what that is. Then think about how your business model impacts the value chain, which are the value chain it impacts. So think from the beginning to the end and see where you fit in, who is upstream, who is downstream, who supports your business and all of that. So first of all, I think some of what I'm saying is you need to really understand the space in which you want to play. And that also applies to every business. It's important to understand the space. So take time to study your industry, take time to study your sector or subsector, understand the growth drivers, understand the challenges that
Mm.
exist, so that when you bring a product or when refine your strategy to the market, you are improving on what exists. You are not just bringing on board, what already exists. So that's the first thing, to really have a deep understanding of what you're trying to do, what's existing in your sector, and all the other things I've said. Um, I think that the next thing I would say would be to embrace learning. Embrace learning. So first of all, learn about your sector and industry tourism. But the second part of that learning is to learn about business on its own. I
Mm.
always tell people, like, business is a language on its own, and you need to speak the language of business. So you need to learn how to do business. There is just so much in the world of business that you have to continuously learn and improve yourself so that you understand. A popular saying is that farming is different from the business of agriculture, or the fact
Yes.
that you like baking and you make the best cake. Running a bakery business is a completely different thing than knowing how to bake. Um,
Yeah.
so that's so embrace learning. Be careful not to chase hype and chase every opportunity.
Mm.
This is about business. When you start business, that's why I always start with having a clear idea of what you want to do. You want to have so many opportunities to get derailed.
Mm.
You don't want to chase the hype. You want to stay grounded, stay rooted in your purpose, and yes, be flexible with your methodology, but don't jump on everything that looks like this is the next thing, this is the next thing. Then you're not able to create that outsized impact that you can create.
Mm. Okay, so this would be like my my last question to you today. Considering that you have been in this space for 15 years, that means you're approaching 2 decades, so you are, an expert. Yeah, you're an expert. So if you were to say that within the food entrepreneurship space, and maybe I would say agro business because you're not typically in agro business, but you're within food entrepreneurship. What would you say are some of like the emerging areas that people could possibly look out for, or even viable areas that people could consider wanting to do as a business within that food ecosystem space?
Okay,
Because it's a big mix.
specifically in the food ecosystem space. So from my perspective, the most obvious one is consumer package manufacturing. So I think
Mm,
that we don't have nearly enough of people that are doing. I also know it's tough, it's difficult, especially when you look at power, finance to start to fund it,
okay.
access to capital. But that's so. For example, we have people doing now. In the last couple of 5 years, I've seen a lot of people doing, like, plantain chips on a big scale. We have
Mhm.
refreshing dried fruits, uh, but there is not nearly enough of manufacturing in the food space of consumer packaged products, like finished products we can push into the retail, into the groceries and all of that. that is an area that I think that there's a lot of opportunities
Mm,
um, to to create an
explore.
impact, to explore. Yes. Um, what I do currently, so interestingly, for example, I mean, I live in Lagos. Every time I
Yeah.
go to Lekki, it's like there's a new food joint opening, small, big, medium. Every day there's a shawarma spot, there's a restaurant, there's a fine dining. So I honestly think that space is I mean, I think
Saturated.
this yeah, I think it's saturated. And you will see that there's recycling. People are opening food stores 2, 3 years, they close, another open. But I think maybe it's because it's easier, maybe less capital intensive. But I think manufacturing is an area where because when your products go further, for example, I can't sell my products to Ogun. I can't sell my products to Kaduna because I'm not there.
Mm,
But when I have packaged products, you can push it, across the entire country, and you can even do exports. So I think there's a
yeah.
lot of opportunities there.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Olagoke. It has been an insightful and enlightening over 60 minutes with you on this call today. It's just been a learning experience for me. I've just been every time I put my head down, I'm just taking notes. It feels like a master class. In fact, someone in the comments said uh,
Oh, I
Ogbonna
can't see
said
the comments.
Oh yeah, Ogbonna said, "This is unbelievable. I can't believe it is free." So I felt like, oh, this is like a very impactful masterclass. I have just been taking notes, just taking notes, and I believe that our audience as well, they are also taking notes as well. Thank you so much for being generous and not holding back, just sharing your expertise, sharing your insights that you've gathered over the years within the sector. And also I agree with you as regards the consumer packaging manufacturing part. There's a lot that should be done around that area as well. But thank you also for sharing that insight with us today. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you. My pleasure. I've had a good experience in sharing. I really like the questions, and I'm glad that people have found it very useful and insightful.
Yeah, they have, and I think that
Wearing black was not a dress code; it was just coincidence.
oh, oh no, no, okay, yeah, it is. I would like to say that one of the reasons why I do this is because I want more Africans, particularly younger people, to be able to sort of explore the various value chains within agriculture, right? We won't categorize your own industry as agriculture, but it is because your business is highly dependent on agricultural produce, right? But it's also like part of it as well. So I want more people to be able to see the opportunities that are within the space and also what they can do to sort of leverage on those opportunities. And just hearing you talk about it from the business side, because most of the experts that I bring on, yeah, like typical experts on like subject matter specialists, but you have just come to say, okay, after being a subject matter specialist, if you're going to do this thing as a business, these are the key vital areas that needs to be focused on if you actually want to grow, sustain the business as well, and also scale the business. And so thank you once again for coming on and sharing. And thank you for the tremendous work that uh, you are doing with So Fresh. I just think about it like how audacious and relentless you had to be way back in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 before the business picked up, and even much more resilient right now, and just trying to see how you're scaling and expanding the business as well. So thank you so much for doing that and just being uh, an inspiration. Honestly, you are an inspiration within the food system ecospace. So well done, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Fantastic.